In this video, you'll learn how freelancers and agency owners just like you can create content with AI that doesn't suck and furthermore helps you generate clients via SEO. Hey, this is Zach from W Freelancing. Today's video is a snippet from a recent podcast episode that I did with Tim Davidson, who's a member of the DYF Accelerator community. So if you enjoyed this video, I would recommend you check out that full podcast, which you can find both on YouTube and on our actual separate podcast. But given that you're watching this on YouTube, I would recommend checking out that full podcast on YouTube because he does a lot of screen sharing and it's ultimately like a masterclass in AI content creation and SEO for freelancers. So for this clip, Tim's going to walk us through his kind of high-level process for how to use AI to create content that doesn't suck. Because if you just go into ChatGPT and say, write me an article about blah, 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 it's probably going to suck. Tim has a unique process that I thought was really cool that he uses to make content that is both SEO oriented and enjoyable to read. He finds the right blend of using the AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting and time saving while still injecting what I would call his secret sauce to make the content make it unique, add his unique perspective, that kind of thing. So let's jump into the clip. The fear I sometimes have with AI content is that if somebody's not a writer, like someone's just a developer, they maybe would think ChatGPT content is good by default. And so how would they know that it's bad and that it needs tweaking, things like that's where I kind of come at this. And I'm not sure if what we're going to talk about today would address that. Like, do you think your process lowers the writing skill bar or does it just make it more efficient? Because it seems like you gotta still kind of know what is good and what's not, which requires a skill bar.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it lowers I think it means that you can write an article that's not as good and still have it be effective. So your content is more likely to rank and it's more likely to contain information that you wouldn't have thought of because you're using AI, which is kind of the magic of writing content this way. Because as I said before, I do a lot of this content while I'm sitting on the couch watching TV. So it's not like I'm sitting there kind of thinking about it, looking up references and stuff.
Yeah, that's a nice benefit of it. Like even everything else aside, if you can get the same quality with a different level of deep focus required, like if you can get a nice quality article that you don't have to really think about, that's cool. That's a nice thing.
Yeah. In any article I write, if I write a really great article, it's going to be an aggregated article that has stats and stuff where someone will read it and put it down and be like, man, that was awesome. Start to finish, that was great. But Google doesn't rank your site if you write one of those articles every 3 months. So you need to write some content that's filler, but has enough value where someone reads it and they're like, yeah, that's actually really interesting. And then they read some stuff like, this is informative. All right, there's a unique point. So this technique does still involve you as the person who has subject matter expertise going into the article and adding at least 3 kind of unique points that ChatGPT can't think of. So it's not completely hands-off. You do at the end have to go through and put that magic in there, but it gives you 90% of the content and it's written in your voice, so you can go through it and be like, I don't have to write that 90%, I just have to do the 10% really well.
Are you able to give with your process? Because I've been thinking of how I might use your process with my own content. And what I've been wanting for a while is to be able to have I usually write a very cursory outline for myself when I go to create a YouTube video or something. Have a cursory outline, maybe even record the video and feed the transcript of the video in or feed my outline in. Is there a way that you can in advance kind of share your take on something? So if someone if the thing that Surfer SEO spat out was the best way to create a Shopify store, that's the kind of thing my concern would be, that if I fed that into ChatGPT, its definition of the best way might well be different than mine. And I think one of the kind of most important things at this point for content creation is being opinionated based on your experience versus aggregating all the possible ways, since that's generic content that ChatGPT could do. Does your process involve that, or is it just let ChatGPT decide what it thinks is the best way? Are you telling it what you're planning and it builds from there?
Yeah, I'm telling it what I'm planning, but I also don't write the outline myself. I let Surfer do that because it knows what ranks. So when you put your keyword into Surfer, it creates the article. It goes off and it analyzes the top like 5 or 10 posts that are ranking for your keyword. And then it breaks those articles apart and figures out which terms are being used the most frequently. It gives you an option to drop an outline directly into your article, which contains a lot of those phrases. So it gives you a bunch of H2s and a bunch of bullet points. So from that outline, and this is kind of getting into a bit that I should probably share with my screen, but from that outline, I go and take that I take that whole thing and drop it into ChatGPT and say to ChatGPT, like, how does this sound to you? Like, what's missing? Can you, because, you know, Surfer's doing this for an SEO perspective, and often I read through the headlines and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense in the context of like what someone would be reading, like going start to finish. You've talked about all of this beginner stuff and then some advanced stuff, and now you're talking about something that's completely unrelated to the topic. So I get ChatGPT to filter those bits out, and I ask it if there's any kind of headlines or bullet points that are missing. And once I've got that outline, that's a SEO ready outline. And then I use my trained model to copy the headlines and the bullet points and just drop them in and say, hey, what do you think about this? Write me some content, and copy that and put it back into the Surfer article. Once I've got all of that content together, that's when I go and do my 15-minute revision and chop stuff out and put my unique points in.
That sounds cool. What I'm wondering is, like, suppose Surfer made the outline and it said like the best way to make a Shopify store is to use this, like a certain pre-built theme. And its recommendation of that represents the fact, like, this is where I run into challenges with keyword-driven content. Its recommendation maybe mirrors like searching intent or belief. Like, it mirrors what people are most ready to believe, but it might not be something you resonate with. Like, if, let's say I was doing something for DYF, it was like the best way to get clients. And all the shit that comes up for that, all the articles that rank for that are talking about like Fiverr. But I don't personally think Fiverr is the best way. I wouldn't want to write an art, and this is me as my special secret snowflake man who cares about the brand versus just putting out content to put out content. But I wouldn't want to create a content piece that advocates for something that I don't think is smart. But I would also feel conflicted. It's like, well, if I scrap this and like say my own thing, then it's not gonna rank. So like, have you ever had that situation with the content briefs given to you, and what do you do when that happens? Yeah,
all the time. Sometimes the outlines go pretty off script for what you think they should be doing. And I'll typically just add my own headlines to steer it back on track. If the outline is completely off kilter, then I'll just ditch the keyword and move on to something else. It's like, I have, at the moment, I think I have maybe 300 or 400 keywords in my list, and that only took me about an hour to generate. So there's literally tens of thousands out there that could be driving you traffic. And it's not worth getting hung up on one keyword just because the article's not heading in your favor.
But it sounds like you wouldn't bother if you had an answer to the question, but it was like super different than what you were seeing from Surfer. You wouldn't even bother creating the article.
Not unless I thought the article was going to rank really well. So if I found a keyword that was like 500 hits a month and I knew a really good unique response for it, and I could write a response that also ticked Surfer's box. So like Surfer has a scoring metric where if you get over 70% of the things it wants you to do, so you have the right word count, you have the right number of images, you have the right number of paragraphs, use most of the keywords that it's telling you to use, which you can do while you write into your own topic. If I could tick all of those boxes, then I'd go for it, but also keeping in mind that if you're using AI generated content, you're doing it because you don't have a lot of time. And when you start heading down this path where you're like, I want my content to be perfect, then you're kind of committing half a day to writing content, and it's probably not going to yield you half a day's worth of like return.
Yeah, that makes sense. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you want to check out the full episode, I would highly recommend it. You should be able to find it on our channel, or maybe we will remember to put a link to it in the YouTube description, or maybe one of those ones at the top. I don't know how to do that. Maybe we can do that. And if we didn't remember to do any of those things, you can just go to our channel and search Tim Davidson, and you should be able to find the whole episode. And if you want to join the DYF community, where I know Tim from, where we do weekly coaching, weekly like kind of check-in accountability calls and one-on-ones with me, you can check that out at dyf.link/community. Thanks for being here, and see you in the next video.